Hello everybody, I'm Roxy and this is Rugby BS. Let me tell you about bad luck. I was like 12 minutes into this video with all the mistakes and like bloopers that entails, and my camera freaking dies. Not only that, but it didn't save anything. So here I am, recording it again. I apologize for the audio quality and like sometimes the blurry nature of the movement because I'm recording with my computer, and although the camera is not all too bad, it does have certain issues. I hope it recovers because it's a really nice camera, but yeah, I didn't want to put off the filming of this video because we are cutting kind of close. I'm going to be filming today my Nonfiction November TBR. For those of you who don't know, Nonfiction November is a monthly reading event hosted by Olive from Book Olive and Gemma from Nonfic Books. I'm going to leave the link of both their channels down below because they are amazing and because they are hosting the event. And it's just like a month-long readathon sort of, where you are encouraged to read more nonfiction than you usually do. Because I normally read quite a lot of nonfiction, I'm going to be reading exclusively nonfiction. So, yay. I've been extremely moody in my readings. I mean, I'm usually a moody reader, but I can usually predict what I'll be in the mood for in like a month or so. So TBRs tend to work well for me, but September and October were just like wild cards. I just couldn't stick to anything, especially in October, and I anticipate November will be quite the same. Good news is that I'm pretty excited to be reading nonfiction. I've been sort of in a nonfiction crave lately. So there are 4 challenges that are very open to interpretation that the hostess give, and they are home, love, substance, and scholarship. That sounds amazing, and I have lots of things that can fit that. I also have a personal challenge of reading 2 books from my TBR jar, which I don't use that often, or definitely not as often as I should, and to read 1 book about the history of Ireland and read 1 book that I purchased in London. I did a nonfiction book haul of my vacation in London, and you can find the link here. So I'm just going to be presenting the books and then saying what challenge they might fit, because I think that's the best way of doing it. So the first book I have here is the Roman Carnival by Johann Wolfgang Goethe. I never know how to pronounce his name. But this is like a really short travel journal through 3 of Rome's festivals. He wasn't very much into carnivals because it was like a high society sort of thing, and that's why he's very descriptive but also very critical of what was going on. Then I have The Good Immigrant, which is like a very well-known book in the booktube community. These are 21 essays by very well-known authors about being an immigrant, I think in England exclusively, but don't quote me on that. I'm very interested in immigration, especially because I live in Chile and it's a relatively new phenomenon compared to like other countries, but it's been a subject of debate lately. I might be dipping in and out of this one. This works very well, I think, with home and scholarship. Then I have Don't Mock Me, Europe Through the Back Door by Greet Stevens, 2017 edition. So I've already been reading this, as you can tell by the bookmark. I picked this up for 2 reasons. One, Gilmore Girls, although they read the 2003 editions, but I'm sort of doing the Rory Gilmore challenge, like dipping in and out of that one. And because I'm going to Europe at the end of this year, and I'm going to be like going to different countries, I thought, hey, you know what, this is a good time to pick this one up for the Rory Gilmore challenge. And yeah, I've been already eyeing this. It's really useful. I know like travel guides are cheesy now that you can get everything on your computer, but I still really, really like them. And this one in particular, I think it's pretty good. That one, I don't think fits anything, but I still need to read it because, you know, 2 months, guys. Then I have A Brief History of Time by Stephen Hawking. This is my first Stephen Hawking. I've hauled this recently. If you want to check out the video, it's here. This is like his most popular and commercial book, where he explains, I think, the basics of like physics and universe. And yeah, I don't know much about it. I would like to learn more about it. So here we go. Also, I think this would work with scholarship and substance. Then I have this book, Hamilton by Ron Chernow. I always forget that it's called Alexander Hamilton because of the musical. Shame on me. But yeah, I'm not from the US, so I don't need to know this history, but I find it fascinating. I'm also obsessed with the musical, so sue me. Again, I hold this in my Rio de Janeiro book haul, so yeah. This fits scholarship quite well. I mean, it's a very scholarly book and it's huge. So here I have Just My Type by Simon Garfield. This is a book about fonts. I started it, I never moved forward with it in spite of liking it quite a lot. Just those inexplicable things that one does. This is a book that goes like through the most famous fonts for their origins, their purposes, their most common uses, and of course it starts with Comic Sans, of course. It's just wonderful and very, very readable. I think it might work well with scholarship. Perhaps you could consider that. However, my main motivation to pick this up, apart from the subject, which I think is fascinating, is that it's on my TBR jar. So, yeah. Another on my TBR jar is Gay Berlin by Robert Beatty. And this is an account of Berlin's queer scene before the Nazi regime. So, very fascinating. I think it might discuss a bit of the Nazi regime as well, and this fits very well both the category of scholarship and love. Then I have Birth, Art, Life, Death by Kyo McClear, and this is a memoir about her, who is a writer, and her dad dies and she's devastated, and she sort of is creatively stunned as well, and she's stuck, and so she meets this musician, and he teaches her about bird watching and how it has changed his life, and so she starts to see nature under a whole other light. This is very short and it's also very beautifully put together. It has like a very beautiful just like presentation. This is one that I'm definitely going to pick up. I think this fits home and love quite well. It's also part of my 5-star prediction pile, which you can find here as well. Then another one of my 5 book-star prediction is Indecisive City by Bill Hayes. This is the memoir of Bill Hayes when, after his partner dies in San Francisco, he moves to New York and he's heartbroken and insomniac. And he really finds a home there because New York is a city that never sleeps. And he also meets Oliver Sacks, the neuroscientist whom I deeply admire, and they fall in love and they stay together, I think, until Oliver Sacks passed away, which is just lovely. And so it's really about both home and love and loss and grief and moving on. Then I also have Neither Here Nor There by Bill Bryson. It's about like small cities in Europe. I recently read Bill Bryson's Lost Continent and I really, really enjoyed it. Even though he's very bitter about small town America and he comes off as quite an asshole, I still find that his writing is really engaging and that he's like really good at describing places. Then I have Inventing Ireland. I've been talking about this quite a lot. A compilation of essays by Declan Keybert where he discusses the creation of Ireland as an independent country, as an independent nation, as independent identity. And it's just super, super interesting. Their relationship with England was quite complex and how that ties in with and through literature, and literature as a socio-cultural and political tool. And so it's fascinating. I've been dipping in and out of this one. I'm like 200 pages in. It's a chunker and I'm just loving it. It's so fascinating. That might fit the challenge of scholarship as well. Then I have Instrumental by James Rhodes. And this is an autobiography by Rhodes, who is a pianist and who has quite a tragic life. He was abused as a child. He became a drug addict and he attempted suicide 5 times. And so he talks about this, but in a way that's not the focus. The focus is on how Bach and classical music overall changed his life. It's a very inspiring memoir, as I've been told, and also you learn quite a lot about classical music. I think this can fit the theme of substance really well. It also feels like love can be related to this. Also, like scholarship because of the classical music aspect of it. I also have At Home by Bill Bryson. This takes a look at the different rooms in the house and how like they have been relevant historically. I think like what was their original purpose and what was their like family significance and social significance, etc. It has a very nice like map here, which I really appreciate. The ground plan. What better book to feed the home challenge than something that it's called At Home, and it discusses homes in a very literal sense. Okay, to finish, I have 2 more books left, I promise, and one is Capturing Light by Arthur Styong. This looks at light from very different perspectives, looks at the physical properties of it, but also like the symbolic characteristics that have been put on light and how light affects us in so many different dimensions, from mythology, religion, to everyday life and biology. So I think it's fascinating. This can also count for scholarship and substance. Yeah, that was the other thing. And finally, I have A History of Ireland by Peter and Fiona Somerset Fry. And this is a book that looks at Irish history. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's a really nice book. It's not a chunkster, so it's pretty easy to get through. It's like very accessible from what I've gathered. This also fulfills the challenge of having been bought in London and dealing with Irish history, which is a subject that I want to focus more on. This also counts for scholarship, and that's it. Okay, so there are 15 books here. There are a lot of them, and am I going to finish them all? Probably not. Probably not even half of it. Am I worried about that? No, I just want to give myself a lot of breathing room because I've been in weird moods with literature, and I also like to dip in and out of, especially the ones that are like essays and history books. So I'm not very concerned with finishing the challenges. I just want to like read nonfiction. I'm going to upload a video with some suggestions to get you started if this is your first nonfiction November, and if you wish to make the transition from fiction to nonfiction, look out for that. I'm going to link it down below once it's up. And that is it. See you next time. Perhaps I'm being like too broad with the definition of scholarship, but to me, like everything that implies certain amount of research, I think counts. I mean, there are scholarly papers on literally everything. And if there's a prize for most useless papers and research, then this can count. Everything can count. And if there's a prize for most